Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to another victory. Well, whenever you're listening to this, Victory Sunday, Victory Monday, post-game podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. The Steelers win again, 10-0. They remain perfect after a 27-3 win over the Jacksonville Jaguars down in Duval County. It was a rare, dominant win over the Jaguars. It was a weird game, but hey, 10-0 is 10-0. And with me, as always, Dave Schofield, other co-editor. How's it going, Dave?
It's going all right. I really wish I could hear your thoughts on this game, Jeff, because I really wish I knew what was going through your mind on a play-by-play basis. I'm really looking forward to this.
He's joking. We watched the game together. He was at my house for the game. He knows exactly what I thought. But Bryan Anthony Davis was not. He was at his own shindig. Bryan, welcome to the show. How's it going?
It really wasn't a shindig. I mean, just my wife and my kids, and my wife commenting on all the bad mustaches on the Steelers players. And she goes, I thought it was No Shave November. I thought they'd have beards. But you know what? It was fun nonetheless. I thought this game was in hand the entire time. And to quote the great George Papard from the A-Team, I love it when a plan comes together.
So this game was strange, and let's start off with the knee-jerk reactions. Bryan, we'll start with you and what your just initial reaction was after the game. The clock goes to zeros, and you think what?
I think that we're going to have a lot of people saying, oh, no, there's problems here, and there's problems here, and the offense doesn't look great. But really, that was a complete win. It really was. The running backs played better. The running game was decent today. You know, it wasn't flawless, and it comes back to something that you always say, Jeff. I think you say the same thing too, Dave, that this team hasn't peaked yet, and just look out and be happy for a win. We're going to celebrate Thanksgiving in 4 days and be thankful that your team is 10-0, and be thankful that your team could win in a variety of ways, and they won in another way today. So these wins, these 10 wins that they have, are not typical of each one. This is a very diverse team as far as ways to beat you. This is a Swiss Army knife team. I'm feeling good.
Dave Schofield, knee-jerk reactions. What do you think?
Boy, the Steelers really know how to lull you into a blowout, don't they? I mean, that's kind of what it feels like, is that this game was never really close. I mean, they scored the last 27 points of the game. They gave up the field goal. So it's funny. They gave up the field goal on the first drive. I turned to Jeff and said, well, there goes Bryan's shutout. And then they shut him out from that point on.
Yeah.
So it was one of those things where, and you felt like the offense had, too many drives, that they left opportunities out there and things like that. But it was a blowout still. But I mean, they really did just kind of ease you and lull you into that throughout this game. The game wasn't really in question beyond the middle of the second quarter. Is it at that point where they hit?
Yeah, second quarter, they kind of broke out.
You got a little bit frustrated, and that's probably why maybe Mr. Roethlisberger is a little frustrated how the first half ended. Leaving points on the field. The Steelers had played clean football for so many games in a row to then have a turnover like that. But once again, not a perfect game, but a perfect record.
Yeah, and I would say that this team is, at least in the past few weeks, has been very opportunistic. I mean, you look at the headline of this podcast, how the Steelers take away, and we'll talk about those takeaways, but they have 4 interceptions on Jake Luton, and so 4 picks is 4 picks. I mean, they're +3 in the turnover differential for the game. Really, really good job. I thought the Steelers' opportunistic ways, if they can continue that, they're going to be a tough team to beat, because the Steelers' offense might not be, the shining example for consistency, but at the same time, they're good enough to score points even on their worst day. You give them extra possessions, they're going to cash in. So real quick, let's get to Isaac Aguilera. Gave us $5. He said, when is Mike Tomlin going to tell the refs to watch every player guarding TJ Watt? Because it seems like he's being held every play and the refs throw nothing. I said it multiple times in this game. Oh, Watt's getting tackled. He's getting tackled again. And finally, they did call holding, but the NFL has not been calling a lot of holding calls this year in general, not just on TJ Watt. I'm sure that Mike Tomlin is telling officials to watch it. Trust me. It's just they're not throwing the flags, period. Rodney Lyles gives us $5. says, I'm just enjoying the ride. Go Steelers, and to all be safe. Amen to that. Just enjoy the ride. 10-0. Holy cow. It is kind of surreal. That's a good way of putting it. For those of us that have been doing this long enough, I remember podcasting my way through an 0-4 start, 1-3. To be 10-0, it's incredible. It is incredible. Let's get it out of the way now. Let's also get it out of the way now. The Ravens lose. The Ravens lost. The Tennessee Titans in overtime come back and they win at M&T. The Ravens have lost 2 games in a row now. They are 6-4, and if you look at the standings, they are 3rd in the division. Bryan, when you saw that result after the Steelers result, what was your thought?
It's a beautiful day, is my thought. This is an opportunity for a knockout punch, not for the division title, and that's something we talked about beforehand before we came on. You do not win the division title if you beat the Ravens. You just knock the Ravens out of your way completely where they can't bother you. That's it. They cannot catch you. They can't do anything if you beat them this week. But we're talking about this game, and it just shows that this team, the Baltimore Ravens, just doesn't have it. They have it against the teams that they should beat. They just have not reached that upper level, which means Lamar Jackson has not made that step like a guy Pat Mahomes did a couple years ago, like different quarterbacks have. This is not a mature team in Baltimore. So when I saw this happen, I was thinking, great. Now we can focus our attention on the bad guys, being the Cleveland Browns. And pretty soon you're going to be seeing the Steelers in the rooting guide posting that you've got to watch out for the Baltimore Ravens and root for the Ravens to beat the Browns.
Dave, you and I were watching this game at the finish, and that's one of the reasons we were a little bit later starting because he had to get home.
If you guys have to start without me, but I'm not missing the end of this.
But Derrick Henry rumbles into the end zone for the win in overtime. Dave, what are your thoughts about the division as we look forward?
Okay, just real quick about the Baltimore stuff. First of all, how deflating is it when a team's in field goal range and you got to hold them and try to block it, and they just bust a big run into the end zone to end the game? That's awful. So I like that. Also, I'm waiting for the reports of the Wikipedia page being changed for the Baltimore Ravens when it says who's their daddy, and it's going to be the Tennessee Titans, knocking them out of the playoffs and coming back in. I mean, this was a game prime for the Ravens to win. Coming off a tough loss last week, you had to have this game, and they didn't. So to me, that tells me this could be Thursday's game it's bonus material. If the Steelers happen to come out and struggle because it's a short week and things don't go their way and something happens, it's not the end of the world. It really isn't. No. To me, the fact that they already took care of business in Baltimore, and because it's not the end of the world, that's an even better chance for the Steelers to go in and win this game. But that's next week. Let's talk about this game. Love that. I mean, it's the AFC North is almost wrapped up. It's almost wrapped up.
We always say it, if you just take care of your own business, you don't have to worry about anyone else. And that's exactly what's happened. Some guy that used to be a podcaster for Behind the Steel Curtain put $5 in the tip jar.
Bingo dollars.
Well, whatever you want to call it. He used to podcast for Behind the Steel Curtain. He was fired this week.
Actually, just demoted to
there you go.
Steelers Cribs. That's the new podcast that comes out at 2 a.m. here.
Yeah. You just got the Sunday at 1:00 time slot. How about that? All right. So good day, fellas. Awesome win. Let's enjoy this one. 10-0 is 10-0, no matter what NFL fans say. 2 teams show up every Sunday, and we have beaten them all. That's true. Very true. We had another one here. Dave, if I miss any of this, any other ones, let me know.
That's all I've seen so far.
Okay, Pittsburgh Steelers fan 39 gives us $5. He says, yet we are ranked lower than the Ravens when we beat a team that they can't beat, and we beat them ourselves. Hey, the Steelers have beaten everyone they've played against. At this point in time, I'm not interested in having any type of idiot conversation with a Ravens fan or a Browns fan when the Steelers haven't lost a game. Okay, that's just period. I'm not going to have that conversation. But you know what we always do here on the postgame show? We look at this game from the numbers. And so let's start off where we always start out with one Benjamin Todd Roethlisberger finishes 32 of 46, 267 yards, sneaky 5.8 average, 2 touchdowns, 1 pick. Gosh, that pick was awful. And 0 sacks, guys. Third straight game that Ben Roethlisberger has not been sacked. He finishes with an 89.7 rating. Let's grade out Big Ben. Dave, go ahead.
It's 4 of the last 5 as well.
I didn't know that. That's noteworthy. Absolutely noteworthy. So Dave, we'll start with you since you just said that. Go ahead and grade Ben Roethlisberger.
We'll probably grade Ben Roethlisberger better than what he grades himself. Jeff said he was not very happy. I was not catching any of his post-game comments because I was trying to get home to do this show. Probably didn't like the interception. Probably didn't like how it's pretty sad when you score 27 points and you feel like you leave a lot on the field. So you know what? I want them to feel this way. I'm glad that Ben Roethlisberger feels this way. I'm going to give Ben Roethlisberger, I'm going to give him a B+ because he did what he had to do, made that nice throw to Ebron as his last pass of the game, and set some things up. Some other times they weren't on the same page and some other things. Interception. Yeah, you say that's ugly, but if Washington turns out instead of turns in, it might have been a touchdown. It was what it was. I would have been fine if it sailed through the end zone. But all in all, I'm not giving him an A because I don't think he would give himself an A.
All right, Brian, what about you? What do you grade BTR? Oh, I'm sorry.
But he gets an A+ on the tackle.
Yeah, very good. What do you grade BTR there, Brian?
You know what? I could go with the B+ that Dave goes. I could also go with an A- just for the fact that his leadership is off the charts with this team. And he really led this team to victory once again on the offensive side of the ball. You know, I'm reading in the comments section, Bo mentions that would have really loved to have put 40 on this team. Everybody wanted them to put 40 on this team. And I understand that. But it's all about how you manage winning the game. They got the running game back into the equation this week. That wasn't perfect, but like Dave said earlier, this game was never in doubt, and Ben had a lot to do with it. Sure, it could have gone a lot better. He would have definitely gotten an A if it wasn't that interception was ugly, but I'll forgive that because I saw on our Slack channel when we were talking about it, hey, take a shot right before halftime where it doesn't matter. So that goes against his stats. But you know what? Who cares? He still has, 5 interceptions on the year as opposed to, I've lost count, 24 touchdowns. So, this.
Well, he had 2. So
he had 2 touchdowns.
I think
he has 24.
Okay, yeah. So this guy really has it together. He's leading the team. And I love the fact that he's hard on himself after the game. So as far as this goes, I have trust in Ben Roethlisberger every time he goes back to pass. And I feel that this was a pretty good game. So the A- is fair.
I'm going to give him a solid B because let's be honest. In my opinion, Ben Roethlisberger is essentially an offensive coordinator. He is. We can complain about Randy Land all we want, but Ben has his fingerprints all over this playbook and all over this game plan. And I just think that he deserves some blame, not all of the blame, for when this offense looks completely discombobulated, completely out of sync, and no rhythm whatsoever. There are just moments, and today there were quarters, the first and the third, where the Steelers offense looked like they had never played a snap together. And so for that, and he was off a little bit on a couple throws, but he's human. I'm not saying I expect perfection from everything, but I'm going to give him a B because I think that it is okay to put some of the blame on the offense's lackluster performance and stretches where they just are awful on Roethlisberger's shoulders. I think that what you might see on Thursday night is you might see a lot of no huddle because that's when the offense seems to be moving well. When they get in their bunches and they spread them out and they have a lot of defensive backs on the field. We'll see. We'll talk about that as the week progresses. But nonetheless, I'm going to give him a solid B. Snowman, before we move on to the running backs, he gave us $5 at the Steelers win, 10-0. The Ratbirds lost. Christmas comes early. That's right, Snowman. We appreciate that tip. Absolutely appreciate it. Here we have $10 from Tom Muir, who says, here we go, Steelers. Here we go. 10-0, $1 for each W. Happy we finished mostly healthy, hoping the bumps and bruises heal up by Thursday. B+ overall, B on offense, A+ on defense, B on special teams. There are his grades. Thank you very much, Tom, for the tip. We appreciate it. All right, let's move on now. Let's go to the running backs. I think, is it? Yes, rushing. The Steelers rushed for 106 total yards, and that includes -4 from Mason Rudolph, who was in the victory formation. Connor has 13 carries for 89 yards. Benny Snell, 7 for 15, did have a touchdown. Ray McLeod, 1 for 3. McFarland, 3 for 3. And like I said, Rudolph, 3 for -4. Guys, if we're grading the ground game, what are you giving them? We'll stick with the order. Let's go with Dave Schofield.
I'm going to – oh, my goodness. I almost want to give them the not the letter grade where it was, pass, fail, needs improvement, much improved. It was improved. I mean, especially with James Conner, when you look at 89 yards on only 13 carries. So it wasn't that, oh my goodness, here goes the run game. There were still just some screwy decisions on how they were running it. And kind of setting things up. There were some things where players where you saw Jacksonville even late, just kind of shooting gaps because they knew where the play was coming as the Steelers go to snap the ball. But in all, I would say it was improved. They ran hard. They did, play hard, and everything. I'm going to give it a B. It's not like it shot off the chart, but it is better than what it was. It could maybe even be a B-, but it wasn't that, they got to chuck it the whole game because they can't do anything on the ground.
What about you, Brian? What grade do you give the running game?
I thought Connor looked a whole heck of a lot better this week, and I don't think Connor's looked bad.
No.
I thought he hasn't had the holes. I thought they opened up more lanes for him as well as far as the offensive line goes. This running game did what he needed it to do, so I'm fine with giving it a B+.
If I were to kind of break this up a little bit, and I didn't give you all the opportunity, so don't feel bad if you didn't, I'm going to give James Conner an A. I'm going to give the running game and everything else that goes along with it a B-. I think it's become very clear. I said this on Twitter during the game. I think it's become very clear. The running back by committee is just not going to work with this offense. It's just not. So the Steelers are not, I don't think, dominant up front enough to be able to say, okay, it's Benny Snell's drive, and then it's Anthony McFarland's drive, and then we're going to get Connor back in. I think that, look, it's Mike Tomlin. We've said this all offseason. Everyone said they need to go running back by committee. And what did we always say? We said, plain and simple, that's not Tomlin's MO. It just isn't. He's not a guy that wants to do a running back by committee. He wants his bell cow, put him out there. So I think,
and we're starting to see why.
Well, yeah, it just doesn't fit. And that's what I'm saying. It just doesn't fit with this offense. So therefore, I think they need to abandon that. It's not that I wouldn't love to see Anthony McFarland break a big run, but at the same time, I don't want them to force it by banging their head against the wall multiple times. If Benny Snell's your short yardage guy, that's fine. Then he uses and he runs in that role. But I think that they need to, the offense itself, from a running perspective, they just need to simplify things, and you might be better off. And I listened to the pregame podcast, and I thought that Kevin Smith brought up a great point of it, that Vance McDonald has been a very key player in the run game, and they clearly missed him. And then they lose Gentry to a quote-unquote significant knee injury. He's probably done for the year.
Probably.
And so now you're looking at a situation again where they were without a player at a position that they like to use. They like to run a lot of a 2 tight end set. So I'll give it if I'm giving just Connor, I'd give him an A. I thought he ran hard. I agree with Bryan. I don't think the issue is Connor. People say we need an upgraded running back. I don't think there's many running backs right now that if you put them in this system, they would have ridiculous numbers. Even Derrick Henry or Alvin Kamara or Dalvin Cook, whoever else you want to bring up, it doesn't matter. So, all right. Good job there, guys. Let's go to the receiving core. Deontay Johnson, back-to-back 100-yard games. He has 12 catches on 16 targets for 111 yards. Chase Claypool, 4 catches for 59 on 8 targets. He has 1 touchdown. Eric Ebron, 4 for 36 on 7 targets. He has a touchdown. And then Ray McLeod with 4 for 20. Juju Smith-Schuster, 4 for 19. Ray McLeod caught everything thrown at him. Juju Smith-Schuster had 5 targets. That's 5 players with 4 or more receptions on the day. They spread the ball around as they always do. Let's grade the receiving core. Dave, we'll start with you.
I'm going to give them an A. I don't really see anything that they did that wouldn't warrant it otherwise. I think they did a nice job. I mean, just imagine, and this was something that was brought up, and I don't know if this is something I can find, but I know Jeff's going to put me on this task that I'm going to have to search for it, is Chase Claypool leading the league in pass interference yards called? Because, I mean, he's just getting them like crazy. Just imagine, if those were receptions that he would be getting on all these plays. And that's part of the reason why Steeler fans are like Chase Claypool, and other people that don't watch all the Steeler games or don't really look at him as much when they're talking about the rookies, because they're looking at some of just the numbers. Like, well, his receiving yards aren't a ton. That's because he's getting pass interference penalties against him all the time. But you can't doubt those touchdowns. Once again, I think the Steelers just saw a matchup that they liked, and that's why Ben's first look more than anybody was always Deontay Johnson. That there was just something that they saw coming into it with Jacksonville's depleted secondary, and I think they did a very nice job. Was pretty efficient, and when they needed it, they came up with the plays. I mean, James Washington only had the one catch, but man, was it a doozy in a nice spot. So I'm content with what they're doing at the wide receiver.
Bryan Anthony Davis grading the receivers?
A. Absolutely. And I got to tell you why. So, every picture of me taken from the time I was probably 3 years old to 7 or 8 was like this, because I thought it was Fonzie. Then the Love Boat came along and it became this. But let me tell you this. I'm looking on the live chat and I saw our very own Jeffrey Benedict chime in, answering your question about the receiving yards and the pass interference yards as well.
Oh, I'll be talking to him after this.
And so here's a big thing. And he mentioned Nuke, which is DeAndre Hopkins. Now, I was going to bring this up before I saw that, because I read about a week and a half ago where DeAndre Hopkins would love to see receivers get credit for their pass interference yards. And I think that'd be really interesting. I don't think that's hard to do. You just put an extra category in saying pass interference yards, and don't throw it on their reception yards, but give them a stat. That would be really cool. If that were to happen, Chase Claypool would probably, his stats would be amazing. Yeah. Can you imagine if you got fantasy football numbers on Claypool's, or DeAndre Hopkins for that matter, on those? That'd be incredible. But getting back to this entire wide receiving stable, I think it's fantastic. I love what they can do, because if you have to go to Ray, you go to Ray. If when Juju Smith-Schuster went out, and I know I've said this a lot, I was like, oh no, we can't lose Juju. But I wasn't like, oh no, if Juju's gone, we're dead. Because you know what? Everybody else steps up on that team. There is a number one wide receiver each and every week. Everybody wants to do the narrative here. Who is the Steelers' true wide receiver? The true number one wide receiver. WR1 is every single week is going to change here for the Pittsburgh Steelers. And that's awesome, because it could be James Washington next week. He only had one catch, but that one catch was absolutely incredible. It was perfect. Everybody on this team is stepping up when we're talking about the wide receivers. Claypool very easily could have been the number one wide receiver today, but you had 12 catches from Deontay, and he was all over the place. Ben likes Claypool for certain things, and he could go to him so many times a game, and he will. He loves Juju for very certain things, and he loves James Washington for certain things. When he goes to when he goes to Deontay Johnson, it's over the middle with that little stuff, and that little stuff comes up big, over 100 yards, 2 weeks in a row. That's why it doesn't matter who your number one wide receiver is here. You just have a number one unit, and that's all you need to know. A.
I'm going to give him an A as well. Dave brought it up. He said, it looks like Deontay Johnson, or DJ, as I call him on Twitter now. It seems like he's his first read. And if he's his first read on a play and he's that open, why would you want him to throw somewhere else? Let's not get over analytical with the finishing numbers, targets, and stuff like that. If the player's open, I'm not going to complain about Ben throwing the ball to the open receiver. You can always I remember this in the Tennessee game when there was the interception where he tried to really thread the needle to Juju Smith-Schuster. Juju Smith-Schuster on that play had a linebacker in trail position. So Ben was looking at his nameplate on the back of his jersey. And it ends up getting tipped up and intercepted. Like, oh, Deontay Johnson was wide open underneath. Look, I get it. But at the same time, I'm going to trust the read. And so in this case, I thought that while there were a couple passes that made you kind of cringe, that the receiving core is doing their job. And James Washington might be a guy, and I said this to Dave during the game, he might be a guy that he might only get 2 targets a game. You better make the most of him when you get him, like, period. And you can talk about, oh, well, we should get James Washington more snaps. So he's going to take off the field. Do you want to take Chase Claypool off the field? I don't. You want to take Deontay Johnson off the field? Nope, not either. Juju Smith-Schuster? No. It's just a matter of you have so much depth at the position, someone's numbers are going to suffer. And I'm not willing, this is just me now, I'm not willing to say Claypool, Johnson, or Juju, unless they're injured, should see less time to get someone like Washington on the field. That's just the way that it is. It's the nature of the beast. If by chance, and I'll bring this up now, Juju Smith-Schuster in the post-game press conference, Mike Tomlin said that there was no significant injury, called it quote-unquote bumps and bruises associated with the play of football, as he always does.
If your bumps and bruise comes from stepping on the flag.
But Juju had an ankle, and then he stepped on the flag. They say it's like a toe. It's just one of those situations where on a short week, who knows? Maybe he can't play, or maybe he can't play up to his normal standards. So this is a week, if that's the case, that James Washington will have to step up. And that's part of the game. You know, Tomlin says it all the time. An injury can be an opening for someone else to step up and make a play. And so the Steelers have tremendous depth. It shouldn't be a problem. Yet some people seem obsessed with making sure that every single player has the same amount of targets. It just isn't the way the game works, period. So, all right, I'll get off my soapbox. Let's lastly grade the offensive line. Just to recap, they did not surrender a sack. Second game in 3 out of 4 that they have not given up a sack. They rushed for 106. Ben threw for 267. For grading the offensive line, guys, how are we grading them? Go ahead, Dave.
Oh, let's see. That's always an interesting one for me. I'm going to give him a B. Ben didn't, once again, no sacks, but, B plus. I'd like to see them. How much of the running game was James? Look, the one time he's running for a 5-yard loss one way and cuts it completely back across the field. I'm like, Ben, don't get hurt trying to block. And, in order to get yards and things like that, it wasn't that the offensive line was doing him a lot of favors. But I also think that they're not doing the offensive line a lot of favors with the way they're trying to run the ball. Like I pointed out to Jeff at the end, hey, look, they put in Derek Watt at the fullback position, not at the end of the line of scrimmage. We're under center. And look, the offensive line had to push 3 yards down the field. When you line up that way, they can do it. It's just they're asking them to do a lot of run blocking out of possible, I don't know, and where they don't get the push. So therefore, could it be improved? Yes. But I think all in all, they did a great job, especially keeping Ben clean.
What about you, Brian? What are you grading the offensive line?
You know what? I don't care how the meal's prepared. I don't care if the chef almost dropped it in the kitchen. I don't care if the waitress put in curly fries instead of regular fries and had to change it. The bottom line is it tasted good. So what I'm saying, 2 numbers to think about. 10-0. Let me give you some other numbers. 27-3. A.
All at a 0 sacks.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. In today's NFL, if you keep the quarterback clean, that's exactly what you want to do. A. I'll give them an A. Straight up A. A plus would have been if they were a little bit more dominant in the run game, like Dave mentioned, but I'll give them an A for sure. Matt Falk, I hope I pronounced that correctly, said, hopefully we keep Juju. I think he's the perfect locker room guy, essentially the anti-AB, while still being a security blanket. Next Sunday, we'll get to the change in the schedule for next week in our podcast platform. Next Sunday, we're going to be doing like a week 12 wrap-up show, I guess. This will be a great discussion point to have, and it's talk about some of the free agents the Steelers have on the horizon, who should stay, who should go, all that stuff. That'll be a good one, but I think they should keep Juju too. I tweeted that out not too long ago. And then let's hear, where's the other one? There we go. Brad Jewett gives us $4.99. Appreciate that. He said, cool, we won. We should have. Let's take a second to laugh at Baltimore being 6-4 and center our focus towards Thursday on to the next. We will, Brad. We will in due time, my friend. In due time, we will get to Baltimore. All right, before we call this first part, the first half of the show, a show, let's go to game balls, offensive game balls. Now, Bryan, this is for a player that plays offense for the Steelers. You want to say that they did a superb job. Okay, so Bryan, I'll give you the go ahead. Go ahead. Who's your game ball for today?
Well, my game ball goes to Antonio Brown, because if Antonio Brown didn't spout off and went traded, then we don't get Deontay Johnson. And Deontay Johnson is going to get my game ball for today on offense. I thought it was fantastic. And I think outside the box, Jeff Hartman. I think outside not only the box, but outside the bun.
I didn't know if you were going with BJ Finney here or what. I mean, even though he's with the Cincinnati.
That was calculated. I thought I was brilliant.
Dave, your offensive game ball goes to.
Since he gave it to DJ, I'm going to give it to James Conner, because I thought he did a nice job of playing hard. If you know what he ran hard. He did what he did. I mean, he had 89 yards, but on 13 carries. I mean, 6.8 yards per carry. That's the kind of, you don't have to have a lot of rushes if you're going to have that kind of average. I thought he bounced back, showed that you do have to pay attention to the Steelers running game. Good job, James Conner.
I'm going to go with Chase Claypool for my game ball, mainly because Deontay Johnson, he already was picked, but Chase Claypool hit pay dirt. You can't underestimate how many ways that he can impact a game. I mean, he drew 2 defensive pass interference calls in this game, I believe, or was it just 1? I know there was 1 that got him into scoring range.
2.
Claypool, at least.
It was at least 2, I think.
And yeah, he did have that drop. It would have been a tough catch, but he did have the one that hit him in the face mask and right through his hands. This kid's still young, but he's impacting the game more than I ever thought he would in his first year. So I give him my game ball. Okay, so what's going to happen now? If you're on YouTube, we're not going anywhere. Don't go anywhere. Stay tuned. If you're on the podcast platform, all you got to do is go to part 2, click play. You'll hear us talk about the defense, defensive game balls, and things like that. So stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, welcome back to part 2 of the Steelers Postgame Podcast. I'm Jeff Hartman, co-editor of BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. Joining me, the other co-editor, Dave Schofield, and the podcast producer, Bryan Anthony Davis. Steelers win 27-3 over the Jacksonville Jaguars. They remain perfect 10-0, and it's on to Baltimore. But first, we need to digest this win on Sunday in Week 11 down in Duval County. Grayson Brown generously gives us $5. He says 10-0. Here we go. Steelers still haven't played their best ball yet. Thoughts on Terrell Edmonds this season and the defense run improvements? Great segue, Grayson. Thank you very much. Let's talk about these defenders a little bit because, boy, were they opportunistic. They were opportunistic. Let's start off with the front. Let's talk about run defense first. James Robinson rushes 17 carries for 73 yards, 4.3 average. This is weird. He's the only person that's credited with a carry for the Jaguars in the entire game. I don't know if I've ever seen that before. Nonetheless, he was held to under 100 yards, and that's under 100 yards total for the team. That's pretty darn good, guys. If we're grading the run defense, what grade are you giving them? We'll start with you, Bryan, this time.
I'm still going to go ahead and give them an A here because I expected James Robinson to be really their only thing. And he's having a really good year as an undrafted free agent out of Illinois State. I jumped on his bandwagon very early this year, put him on almost every one of my fantasy football teams, and he's done really well. And I knew that I really didn't want to start him this week because I didn't think he was going to be absolutely amazing against the Steelers. And he wasn't. They continue to do what they need to do they do what they need to do when it comes to stopping the running game. They're looking better. And I think those running woes are behind them for this week.
Dave, grading the run defense?
I'm going to give them an A-. There was some times that I pointed out that they gave up big running yards on first down a couple times. But a lot of those times, it was funny because I pointed this out that they would have the Steelers in their nickel defense and then run up the middle. Other than that, a few times of giving up, 8 to 10 yards on a first down run, then they turn around and just shut it completely down. So there's still something to be learned in those plays. So therefore it's a building experience, but that's being ticky tack. I really should give them an A because they did a great job.
I'm giving him an A. Tyson Alualu is ridiculously important to this defense, as Dave pointed out during the game. And I think that it was a step forward. It's a team that wanted to run the football. They have a good running back, rookie. He reminds me of MJD, little Maurice Jones-Drew, like a little bowling ball. And the fact that he plays in Jacksonville just kind of makes it even more significant. But still, I will give him an A. First time in the last 3 games they've held an opposing team to under 100 yards rushing. It's a step in the right direction, something they can kind of hang their hat on before they head into this game on Thursday against the Ravens, who still do like to run the football. Wes Hickok gives us $5. He said Derrick Henry gets my game ball, 133 yards, 1 touchdown, 1 win. The defensive game ball, he's giving it to Terrell Edmonds. Yes, I just said that. I can't believe it myself. So thank you, Wes. We'll get to our game balls here in a second. Let's go to the pass defense next. Jake Luton he went 16 for 37, 151 yards passing, an average of 4.1. He was intercepted 4 times, 0 touchdowns for a rating of 15.5. DJ Chark Jr. had 4 catches for 41 yards. Tyler Eifert, who I didn't even know was still alive, 2 for 32. Keelan Cole Sr. with 2 for 26. James Robinson, 2 for 21. Guys, this was not a good performance, but in terms of the fact that the quarterback was Jake Luton. How do you grade the pass defense? Let's go with pass defense, because I should have said, let me be more specific. Terrell Edmonds ends up with 2 picks. The second one was a beaut. Minkah Fitzpatrick with 2 picks. In terms of pass defenses, the Steelers finished with 8. Guys, grade the secondary, the pass defense. We'll start with Bryan.
How can you not give them an A+? I'm
sorry.
Oh, geez. You had to bring that up.
Said Keith Butler was ready for Tyler Eifert.
Guys had to bring that up.
Sorry.
Do you remember that, Bryan? Do you remember that, Bryan?
Actually, no. I wasn't looking at the live chat, so I had no clue. I still don't.
Do you remember what he's talking about?
No, I have no idea.
It was when Eifert didn't play.
He was out for the season.
He was out for the season. He wasn't even playing, and he said in a Thursday media session, we're going to be ready for Eifert and all this stuff, and he got ripped to shreds.
That was just last year, wasn't it?
I think it was last
2 years ago, I think. Anyways, it doesn't matter.
Well,
way to kill his vibe, Dave. All right, good, Bryan.
That was just good.
All right. So how can you not give them an A+? They covered well. They were very opportunistic. You have 4 interceptions, really good game. I was worried because DJ Chark, or as we like to call in my house, DJ Chark, DJ Chark. Well, anyways, and then when DJ Chark got a little chippy, I changed it to DJ Chark, you sucked it. And then my kids started singing that. I get in trouble. And then they don't stop singing it. I get in more trouble. But Keelan Cole was the guy I actually put on my FanDuel team today.
Why?
Why
would you do that?
He was cheap.
He's getting passed to, Jake Luton was throwing in the ball, you have to remember.
He was cheap, and I thought maybe it would
All
be
right.
good. That's why I don't win that money anymore.
That started off like every one of Bryan's 2 a.m. stories. It was cheap, and I thought it would be good.
Smoke him if you got him, boys. So, they did a great job against these guys, and I'm going to talk more about Terrell Edmonds later. I know Kyle wants to hear more about me talking about Terrell Edmonds. I will say this about Terrell Edmonds: every single week in my bold and bizarre prediction,
say this.
I say he is going to get an interception. This week, I say he's going to have a great game, but he's going to drop a key interception. He's not going to get an interception, and he gets 2. So guess what? I took credit for that in my house.
You own it.
Yeah, I was like, there we go. I did that. No, great job by the secondary. They really had a good day.
Dave Schofield, go ahead.
You have to answer me a question real quick, Jeff, because I don't want to screw this up because I can't remember. Do we do the pass rush as a different grade, or is this included?
Pass rush is coming up.
Okay, well then I'll leave it out. Then it's then I'm going to say that the defense I'm torn between an A or an A plus. I mean, it's the NFL. People are going to complete passes at times and things are going to happen, but these guys were all over it. Nobody gets in the touchdown zone. They did what they had to do, taking the ball away. I'm going to go with the A plus.
I'm going to echo your A plus for one main reason. You lose Joe Hayden. Now, I think Joe Hayden could have come back in and played if it was a significant game. They said, we don't need you to. And they didn't miss a beat. Justin Lane has played more snaps this season than he has his whole career. Second-year guy out of Michigan State. You also have Mike Hilton was back. That helps. Cam Sutton, he looked good. Cam Sutton almost had a pick 6 in this game. He had his hands on the football and he had the sideline. So I'm going to give him an A plus for sure. All right, before we go to the pass rush, let's get to Alec. Clark gives us $4.99. He says 10-0. Love the podcast. Thoughts on Ray? I love him on special teams, obviously, but would love to see him more, even with the depth we already have. Again, it comes down to, in my opinion, it just comes down to there's only so many footballs to go around, and there's only so many snaps. And so everyone wants to see more of Ray, but then everyone wants to see more of James Washington too. And so who do you not want to see more of? Do you not want to see more of Chase Claypool? Do you not want to see more of Deontay Johnson?
He got a head off in the backfield tonight. That was good today. That was great.
You know, the thing about Ray is he gets more opportunities than most special teams guys usually get. DHB never got that much, only if they had to because they were hamstrung by injuries. Yeah. So they actually put him in the game plan for a couple plays a game, and that's more than I've seen in a long time. Remember, just about 10 years ago, had a fantastic guy in Stephon Logan. He was great, but he never saw the field. He was a very good kick returner for him, a one-year wonder, did great things, set some records for them as well. But, you know, Ray is a part of the equation. He just doesn't need to be counted on that much.
I agree. 100%. Agree 100%. Okay,
how great is the discussion that we're having to worry about getting guys enough playing time rather than saying, oh man, we've got nobody to play this or that.
When your team wins 27-3, when your team wins 27-3 and you're complaining about someone not getting enough snaps. Yeah. It's a good problem to have.
Yeah.
Let's stick with the defense. So let's go to the pass rush in particular. The Steelers ended up with 7 quarterback hits. They only got to Jake Luton twice. Stephon Tuitt with 1, Bud Dupree with the other. In the second half, I got to be honest, I was worried. I said to Dave at one point, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like this is in jeopardy. The sack streak might be in jeopardy. Luton was getting rid of the ball quickly. They did not want him to have to drop back the 7-step drops, 8-step drops. And then eventually they had to. Eventually you had to, because when you're down by so many points, you have to try to get back in the game. And you're not going to be able to do that with those 3-step drop ball out of your hands. In the end, they get to him twice. But let's grade out the pass rush today. Bryan, we'll start with you, keeping the same order.
I'm still giving it an A, and I'm going to tell you why. Because when they did, it was effective. That is a big help. I mean, the pass rush was a huge help in getting 4 interceptions. You got to realize that. You know, even when you look at the fact that the first one was deflected by Tyson Alualu, I know he really wasn't rushing the passer per se, but he got his hand up. That front 7 did a lot to help get that secondary, those 4 interceptions. TJ Watt was getting mugged a few times. Bud Dupree seemed like early on that he was almost getting there. You're right, Luton or
it's
whatever.
Luton. It's Luton.
Remember the cough drops, Luton's, the cherry flavor. They were good. Yeah. So, I mean, really, Luton's cough drop was probably better than this guy today. But the pass rush was not spectacular as far as stat-wise, but they did everything you've got to do, and they won 27-3. So, hey.
All right, Dave, what about you?
I'm going to say B plus, because I would like them to be able to get home. Like I was one time, Bud Dupree was going to run down from behind until TJ Watt basically blocked him off from getting to the sack. Well, it was just one of those things. I'd like to see them get home more, but you've got to understand the Steelers are so good at getting to the quarterback. That's got to be the focus every time a team goes on the field against them. We've got to protect the quarterback. We've got to get the ball out quick. Blah, blah, blah. And Bryan's right. What did it cost today? It helped cost 4 interceptions. So it's doing great. I'd like to see it get home a little bit more. It's not that they did anything wrong. It's just what it was.
This is why this team works together so well, something they didn't do last season, because without Roethlisberger, they couldn't. If the Steelers offense is going to put up points, even if it's just like a 10-point lead, or I think they had a 14-point lead heading into halftime, 17-3. 14 points is enough that the other team is going to have to start changing their philosophy. They're not going to have, unless they're the Houston Texans in week 3, where they decided to keep running the ball no matter what. But that was Bill O'Brien running that team to the ground. It changes everything. And so you can dink and dunk your way, but when you're down by 2 scores, you can't. You're going to kill too much time. And that's why a team like the Baltimore Ravens, even coming up on Thursday night, they're not a big play team through the air. And so if you can get a lead, you're playing right into the hands of the Steelers defense. And that's exactly what happened today. Eventually, the Jaguars had to drop back. They had to try to put the ball down the field. And that's a recipe for disaster, especially with a team that is employing some really, really young and inexperienced players at almost every position. So I give them an A. I thought they did a good job. I wish the sack numbers were better. But again, a lot of teams are doing max protect. They're chipping TJ Watt every single play. I thought Bud Dupree was going to get home a couple more times than he did, but hey, it is what it is. I want to go through some numbers here on the defensive side of the ball because I think it's noteworthy. So there was no one really that had crazy tackle numbers in this game. Vince Williams, 5 total, 4 solo. Minka, 5, 3 solo. He had 2 pass defenses and 2 interceptions. Cam Hayward, 5 for 1. Spillane, 4 for 3. Terrell Edmonds, 4 for 2 with 2 pass defenses and 2 interceptions. So guys, let's go defensive game balls now. Okay, defensive game balls. Who you giving it to? We'll go with Dave first this time.
Yeah. Good, because I'd like to go last on this one.
Oh, okay.
I'm going to leave it for you because I'm going to make him say it. I want him to have to say who gets the game ball. He should have to say it. So I'm going to think way outside of the box.
He's going to think outside the box. That's why he told everyone to go ahead of him.
No, well, I'm going outside the box because I was waiting for you guys to take the regular ones. My outside the box, because you two better take the other 2. I'm forcing Brian's hand to make him have to say it. He's going to have to say it.
I have no problem saying it.
Good. I'm going, shockingly, with someone who had 0 tackles. I'm going with Tyson Alualu. He had the pass defense. That interception was as much as on because of him as anything.
Yeah.
But what did I point out to you, Jeff, at the one point? They go to run the ball. On first down, they get like 8 yards or something like that. The whole offensive line had a 3-yard push down the field. I said, look, they were in nickel. The next play, they're lined up with 3 defensive line with Tyson Alualu in the middle. And guess what? Nothing. No push, nothing. He changes the game when he's in there as a nose tackle. I still, Steeler fans thought, well, yeah, I think Alualu could get the job going into the season that they didn't draft another nose tackle and things like that. I don't think any of us expected for him to make this much of a difference in the Steelers running game and just on the defense in general. It's fantastic.
Okay, Brian, what do you want to do here?
Okay, you know what? I'll go ahead and go.
Go.
And I'm still going to go with Terrell Edmonds.
Thank you.
And I was going to go Terrell Edmonds. I was rough on him the first couple of games of the season. And you notice around week 4 or 5, I completely changed my tune and I jumped on his bandwagon. He deserves the game ball. Somebody mentioned earlier that he did drop one. He did drop an interception this week. He could have had 3 maybe. Great game. He is playing to the point where we wanted the play out of him. He's still never going to get the credit that he deserves. I think it's time he starts getting the credit that he deserves. I do want to throw in, there's one more guy, and I don't want to take it away from Jeff. Well, I know who Jeff's going with, but there was a guy, the reason I wanted to go last, I expected one of you to take Edmonds, and I want to make sure Bud Dupree gets credit this week because Bud Dupree had a great week. And it just does not fit, it just does not look like he had a great week because he doesn't have enormous stats. And we are getting so enamored in stats with these guys, and we're so enamored in records and sack records. I am too. I want them to break the all-time record. But the bottom line, I want them to go 19-0 at the end of the season, and that's all I care about. So bottom line, great week for Terrell Edmonds. Keep that up. Best secondary in the league right now, in my mind.
I'm going to go with Minkah Fitzpatrick for my defensive game ball because this is what we saw in 2019. And I was one that said, where's Minkah earlier in the season. Where is he? Because last season, it seemed like the football literally would just find him. It looked like, I don't know what it was. He and Devin Bush had this knack for whether there's a fumble on the ground, the ball would just kind of go right to him. He's in that zone again. He's in the right place at the right time. His second pick was definitely noteworthy. That was all him. That wasn't a tip ball that goes into his hands, but you can't take anything away from him. Minka Fitzpatrick has been a playmaker for the Steelers since the day he put on a black and gold jersey, and he continues that in 2020. How many interceptions does he have now in the season? Anyone know? Four? To say, that's what I thought.
Sounds about right.
Tremendous
Jeff,
stuff. Yeah.
There's something else I want to say. There's a stat that's missing. Because if you look at the passes defense, of course you get the 2 from Mink and the 2 from Edmonds because those are the interceptions.
Yes.
You have a Cam Sutton, you have a Bud Dupree, you have a Stephon Tua, you have a Tyson Alao. Those were the ones getting knocked down at the line of scrimmage. And every time that ball was knocked and up in the air, you and I are both screaming, go pick it off. I mean, one time it landed out of bounds, and we're still hoping that the Steelers make that play. But isn't it kind of weird that TJ Watt 2 different times is at the quarterback, hitting his arm, making the ball come out where you even had to question how close was that to a fumble, but he gets it off. But yet that comes across as not a pass defense or anything. Weird. Yeah. But I mean, he had a couple of them today, and that was they were in some nice spots too.
It's a good point. Snowman puts $5 in the tip jar. Thank you, Snowman. We appreciate it. He said we had 519 in the chat at the time he put this tip jar. He says only 106 likes. Come on, folks, hit the like button. We appreciate all the love on YouTube. If you're watching live on YouTube or if you're watching in replay, hit the thumbs up button. Subscribe to the channel. We do appreciate it as you get all of our afternoon podcasts here live streamed on youtube.com. If you don't know where to find us, if you're listening on audio platform, go to youtube.com, search BTSC Steelers Radio. All right, before we go into any final thoughts or anything, I do want to do a quick rundown while I still have everyone's attention about what next week is going to look like for our podcast platform. Okay, it's going to look different. We're still getting you all the shows. It's just going to be a little different. So, Bryan, correct me if I'm wrong. Monday, you're going to have the post-game show in the morning on audio. My Let's Ride will run at noon. And then around 5 p.m., live on YouTube, you'll have the Steelers Hangover, followed by Monday night, the Scobro Show with Dave and Rich. Correct, Bryan?
Absolutely. The only thing that you will be missing there will be the Retro Show, which will air later on in the week.
Yes. It's going to be moved. Tuesday, you'll have the live mic, regular time in the morning. You will have the Scobro Show will run on our audio side at noon on Tuesday. Tuesday night, the three of us will be here for the Steelers preview. It's being moved from Thursday because they play on Thursday to Tuesday. Okay, so then Wednesday morning, which is the day before the game, I will have Let's Ride in the morning. Steelers preview will air on our audio side at noon. And then Wednesday night is Know Your Enemy. Nothing changes with that. No schedule change at all. Our pregame show will be Thursday morning. That'll be Bryan, and I'm guessing you'll get Kevin on as well?
Yes, Kevin and I are already ready to go.
And then we'll be back, the three of us, after the game on Thursday night to talk about that. Friday morning, you'll have the pregame, and then Let's Ride will run at noon. And then Friday evening might be like a retro show or something like that. We'll figure something out. Will we have a live show on Friday on YouTube, Bryan?
We don't usually.
No, we don't.
Yeah. No, we don't. There's going to be some added bonus coming up this weekend here and there. You're going to have some things changing around because of the crazy week. Yeah. The Mike Tomlin press conference will probably be, I would assume that would be Monday, the recap. Yeah. So everything will be there. And in fact, we might add some extra stuff just for the fact that the game's Thursday and we still have a lot to say and a lot to look at coming up. So we expect to have something going on Sunday as well, but you're going to have your touchdown unders on, you're going to have that on Friday, on Saturday, you're going to have brunch with Tony as well. So everything that you're looking for, we're going to have, and maybe some added bonuses.
Let me say that there's people
Stat
in the
Geek's in there somewhere.
Stat Geek is, I think it's, I want to put that on the weekend, but sure.
Yeah, it's going to be on the weekend.
I do want to say this. A lot of people are saying, hey, you all should get a call-in show. If there's a way, and I don't know how, and I'd have to do some research, and maybe this is an off-season project of ours. If there's a way to be able to do a call-in show while still doing what we do on YouTube, I would love it. I'd love it. I think it'd be great to finally hear from some people that are always in the live chat. We'll have to figure something out. I'm not sure how that works. Bryan, Dave, and I will put our heads together, and we'll see if we can figure something out. But I just want to give you that rundown before we call it a show, while I still have everyone's attention, because I know sometimes at the very end of the show, people kind of tune out. So we're still going to be here. You're still getting all the content. It's just going to be jam-packed before the Steelers play on Thursday Night Football. All right, so let's do final thoughts now. Let's go with Dave first. Final thoughts on this Week 11 game.
I think it kind of comes back to what I said to start, is being lulled into a blowout. I don't care that you were lulled into a blowout. I like that this team is, this was a decisive win on the road. But the biggest thing you have to realize is, was Ben a little frustrated, thinking maybe the offense could have done more? Sure. This defense gave up 3 points. Okay. The defense gave up 3 points after giving up only 10 last week. This is the difference between this Steelers team and some of the other ones out there that getting a lot of love. They don't have that super top-notch defense to go along with the offense that is doing what they're doing. I think this is the most balanced offensively, defensively team in the NFL, hence the 10-0 record. And guess what? If you're frustrated with what those national talking heads are saying about the Steelers, it's very simple. Don't listen to them. Stick to your Steeler family.
There you go. Bryan Anthony Davis, final thoughts?
Don't you love it when a team is winning by 27-3 to go to 10-0, and we have got to look for some stuff to complain about and stuff to worry about? I just want you guys to enjoy the ride, because I'm really enjoying this ride. You've got the Ravens at 6-4. You've got the Browns at 7-3. This thing's not over, sure, but that's great. Dave just said about the national media and everybody talking about how the Steelers aren't a great 10-0 team now, or how they are not an epic, elite team of all time. Hey, 10-0 is all that matters. Style points do not matter, and I love that stuff. I love the fact that Ben Roethlisberger is not ranked in the top 10 of quarterbacks. I love that Chase Claypool is not ranked in the top 10 of rookies, and he has 10 touchdowns. One of the second quickest in 10 games to get to 10 of all time, with guys like Harlan Hill and names that you've never even heard of. The only time
Dick Shiner did that, didn't he?
Dick Shiner is not a quarterback, and I love it. But see, that's the thing. When you do that, when you do not include the Steelers in the equation, when you do not make their heads bigger, you make something else bigger. And it's great to have a chip that is bigger on that shoulder that grows and grows and grows. That chip's not a tumor. That chip can get knocked off, and it gets knocked off by winning. And the Pittsburgh Steelers are winning 10-0. You've never seen it as a Pittsburgh Steelers fan. You've never seen it as a Pittsburgh Pirate fan when the Steelers were the Pirates. You've never seen it, and you're seeing it. Embrace it, enjoy it, and let's go get them Ratbirds. Wang Harbs is coming to town. Let's deflate the Wang.
Follow that up.
Oh
Jefferson.
my gosh. No, seriously. All I could hear was, "It's not a tumor. It's not a tumor," from Kindergarten Cop. And then he says, "Deflate the Wang." Oh my gosh.
Deflate the Wang.
That's a shirt.
That's a t-shirt right there.
I don't know. We might get in trouble for that one. Deflate the Wang. Anyways, I'm just going to finish it up kind of saying that I think it's great that the Steelers play the Ravens this week. It's great. Because could you imagine if the Steelers had to play a team like, I'll just throw a random team out there. Let's say the Jacksonville game was on Thursday Night Football. Let's say they had that game there for some reason. Could you imagine that's a letdown game waiting to happen if you believe in that type of stuff? This game, the Steelers are not going to overlook the Baltimore Ravens at all. No. They are going to have 100%, because you know what? The Ravens are going to be playing for their playoff lives, and the Steelers are going to be playing for the opportunity to put them out of it. You give them a fifth loss, and all of a sudden, when you have that 6-3, 7-3 group that's all vying for the playoff spots right there, you give them a 6-5 record. That's tough sledding, and they have some tough games coming up. So the Pittsburgh Steelers are 10-0. I think if you go back to the other great teams, whether it's 2005, 2008, or back in the 70s, every single one of those teams has had stretches where they were like, oh, that was an ugly win, but they still find a way to win. That's what these Steelers are doing. You shouldn't complain. And Ocam's OX puts it best, $4.99 the tip jar, says, crows for Thanksgiving, boys. Let's go. Undefeated. Amen to that. I'm not eating crow, but yeah, absolutely. I know what he's talking about. So anything else, guys? Are we good?
Hey,
We're great.
10-0.
The only numbers
Double-digit victories in the least amount of names or the least amount of games
0.
possible. That's crazy. I don't care who it was that they beat. 10-0, man. 10-0.
I still can't believe it. I honestly cannot believe it. Like I just remember all these painful losses and talking about them in post-game shows. If we're sitting there saying, "Oh my gosh," like we're having to nitpick, we're literally nitpicking. That's what's happening.
My first season doing post-game with Jeff. In fact, I think we did it. It was the Hangover back then, but it was actually the post-game show. And what we were doing, it was on Blog Talk Radio, and the Steelers were 5-6. And we're saying, hey, the season's not over yet. If they just lost to Dallas, but if they get on a roll, they could be okay. They did. They went on a roll. They went to the AFC Championship game. They lost, but that was so hectic. This isn't hectic. This is glorious. 10-0.
Yeah. 10-0 indeed. It's just great. Let's enjoy the ride. Let's enjoy this win. We're going to be turning things quickly because the Steelers are going to be turning the page quickly to the Ravens. So stay with us. Wherever you get your podcasts, search Steelers or Behind the Steel Curtain, subscribe, follow wherever you get your shows, and make sure BehindTheSteelCurtain.com, because a lot of people don't realize we are connected with BehindTheSteelCurtain.com. It should be your one-stop shop for all things Pittsburgh Steelers. We'll have some great content there for you. Gentlemen, thank you very much. 10-0 is 10-0. I don't care how you do it. Plain and simple. Let's do it. Let's go. Stay tuned. We'll see you next week. See you Thursday night for a Steelers post-game show. Take it easy.